All right, so what I want to do is just pick out a few observations here from this little conversation. This is the first response. These are the first words of God after the first original sin. Like theologians in history call this original sin. It's the first evidence of sin and rebellion from human beings in the world. And we see how God initially responds. And what does he do? Well, first, he takes initiative and he pursues humanity in the midst of their brokenness. Now, I know that kind of sounds obvious and simple, but just consider the situation here, okay? God knows that as soon as Adam and Eve have committed sin and rebellion against him, they've decided not to trust him, they break from relationship with him, and they go off on their own, that he knows that that's going to create this ripple effect of devastation, of misery, of brokenness throughout the whole world. Like, it's going to affect the earth. That's how powerful sin is. So he already knows that. He already knows before he comes to them in conversation that what they've done. And he chooses not to remain distant, but he enters in. He willingly comes and engages the situation. The ramifications of what their sin means for humanity, for the world, for history, and yet God comes and he enters in. Okay? He's not afraid of sinful and dark and messed up situations. Awkward situations. He's not afraid of it. He's not afraid of dark, messed up, sinful, awkward you. And whatever your situation is, he comes and he enters in. He comes with grace and compassion. He's not like these old gods that you read about, the Greek gods or the Babylonian gods from those old creation myths, where they heap judgment and punishment for every single little thing. Look at the way that he comes. He just comes and he enters into conversation with Adam and Eve. After they've just blatantly believed a lie and they've distrusted him. And they said, thanks God, but no thanks. And they basically give him the finger. They said, we're going to do this on our own now. And God says, I'm coming to be with you right now. And I'm going to enter in and take initiative to do something about this. Okay? My friends, I want you to see that, like, no sin of yours, whatever the sin is, whatever the expression of it is in your life, no sin is too messed up. It's not too broken. It's not too egregious. That word means bad. It's not too socially unacceptable. It's not too heinous for God to come and be near you and close to you and enter in and engage and help you with it. It's not too big for God. He's bigger than it. He's too loving and he's too gracious and he's too kind not to do that. And you see it right here with Adam and Eve. Now I want to show you something I think is important here. Okay? Sometimes I know that maybe a lot of us have grown up to believe that our sin separates us from God, and that's true. It severs relationship, it breaks relationships, so that you need someone to come and mediate for you, to come and stand in the gap and bring about reconciliation. And that's what we believe about the gospel. That's what Christians believe. But oftentimes I think within that we have this picture of, like, let's say, here's us, okay? And we're sinning. And it creates like this, we think that it creates this big, massive wall between us and God. That like, every time we sin, that it just kind of continues to build and strengthen this wall, and that God's on the other side of it. And he's just waiting around for us to get our act together. Like, he's waiting around for us to start doing some good things again, to maybe counterbalance the bad stuff that we've done. Or he's waiting around for us to just kind of get through the shame and deal with it, and then he'll enter in. That's not the case, because that's not what we see here. I mean, if that was the case, then we wouldn't have this conversation. We wouldn't have God coming and saying, "Where are you? I'm looking for you. I'm pursuing you right now." What you see here is God just busts through this whole thing. I mean, it's gone. He comes through, and he comes, and he enters in. Okay? He's not going to allow our sin or their sin to continue to create this big old blockade. Okay? I want you guys to see this, how powerful this is. God is here to help. He's not here to stand off and wait for you to figure it out. Now, there is such a thing as confession and repentance, and we'll get to that in a later session. That's part of it. But I want you to see how gracious and kind and loving God is to not allow your sin to continue to control you and master you. Like, he cares for you. He's concerned for you so much. He wants to be near to you, and he's coming to help. Okay? Furthermore, look at this. Okay? God, look at how he comes. He's coming in grace and mercy and kindness and love. And then what does he do? The first thing he says is, "Where are you?" First question. Second question, "Who told you that you were naked? What are you believing right now?" Third question, "Have you eaten of the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" Fourth question, when he talks to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" Before God makes any statements about your sin, about any kind of maybe natural consequences of your sin, punishment, or these cursings that come later, he asks 4 questions. Okay? I think that's really unique, and that's really interesting. Instead of him making these statements about, "Well, you did this, here's the sentence, here's the punishment, here's the discipline, here's the policy, here's the law, you're done, get out of my sight." And that's typically how the law system works here in America. He comes and he has a conversation. He asks questions first. I don't know if you guys knew this. Is there any communication majors here in the room? Okay, I was a communication major, right? If you're in a potentially conflicting situation and you begin asking questions, the other person can't argue with that. You can't argue with an honest question. All you can do is you can choose to respond to the question or not. If you come in and you make statements, you say, "This is what I think," somebody's going to argue with you. That's just your opinion. That's just what you think. But if you come in and you ask questions, you can't argue with the question. All you can do is create more dialogue and conversation. You guys ever notice that? Guys, get used to and learn how to ask good questions. It will help you when you date girls. Okay? Just leave it at that right there. Got it. Thank you, Michael. I've been married for 16 years. I'm still learning how to ask my wife good questions. Okay? If I only make statements, she might argue with me and I might argue back, right? Now, there's a place for that in marriage and relationships, I get it. But start with questions. That's the beauty of questions. See, in all this, I just want you guys to see that God is first of all concerned. He's not first of all condemning. He's first of all concerned because of his love. The condemnation comes because of his justice, because of his righteousness and his perfectness and his perfection. The condemnation and the judgment on our sin comes because God is just. He can't allow sin to remain unchecked and nothing to be done about it. But he first comes in love. That's his first move towards us as sinful human beings. I really want you to understand that, and I really want you to get that and think on it. God is so kind to you that he wants to be near you. He wants to help you. He doesn't want your sin and shame to continue to create this huge wall. Okay? And then what we see a little bit later here, as God works through the natural consequences of their sin. I mentioned this last week, I'll mention this again. He talks about this offspring, this seed, or this child that's going to come from the womb of the woman. later on down the road. That's going to come, and it is going to come and save and come and take care of all of the evil in the world, and particularly the evil one, the enemy, Satan. So last term, spring term last year, when I was here, some of you guys might remember this, but I kind of drew out this little timeline here, this little plot line of the Bible story. And what you have here, the creation, and everything's good, and it's right and perfect, and you've got God plus humanity, and they're in a perfect relationship. And then as soon as they sin, it's like the needle on the record vinyl scratches, and it just stops everything. And everything begins to unravel. The story begins to unravel from there. And you've got this downward spiral, and everything is broken. And God is going to come at some point in the story through a hero, through the Messiah, through Yeshua, through Jesus, the one who saves. He's going to come and he's going to enter in fully and ultimately through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. This man actually lived in history. The history books say, okay, he